Hey folks, it's Larry Taylor with the Unstuck Spirit. I'm a certified spiritual director and certified life coach and a certified chaplain. And I work remotely at the Unstuck Spirit. The Unstuckspirit.com. The Unstuckspirit.com. Wanted to talk to you about something that uh, is very real to me, and that is depression. And I'm not aware of anything that I'm going to say that's unscientific, but what I'm going to share is not based on science. In fact, it's based on a sampling of exactly one person, namely me. I just want to share with you things that have helped me, specifically three things that have helped me, because I've experienced long term chronic deep depression off and on for many, many years. I'm not trying to suggest a one size fits all kind of approach. I'm just going to share what has helped me, and maybe you'll find something that I say helpful as well. I'm talking about depression. I'm not talking about bereavement. I've been there also. We lost our oldest son to suicide when he was in high school. And I've been through the deaths of both of my parents. And I've been a hospice chaplain. I was a hospice chaplain for many years. And I've been around death a lot. You can't medicate bereavement. The solution to the deep grief that you feel when you lose a loved one is not to take a pill. Well meaning people sometimes push that on bereaved people, but that's not the answer. Uh, grief, the grief of losing a loved one, is something that has to be felt. You have to go through it. There's no avoiding it. Um, well, people do try to avoid it, but the consequences of trying to avoid it are not helpful. There are some really good support groups for bereavement. You can find some online. If you have in your locality a not for profit hospice, they may have some contacts, or they may even have bereavement counseling available. I emphasize not for profit because you have to be careful with hospices. The hospice program started out as this wonderful altruistic thing. It began in Europe and then uh, migrated to the United States and to North America. But um, in recent years, there's an influx of for-profit corporations that are some of them are very dishonest. Some of them have defrauded Medicare and Medicaid. They're in it for the money. So anyway, I'm off topic here, but look for a not-for-profit hospice and connect with them, and they can give you some guidance and direction as to how to deal with um, bereavement. So I'm not talking about bereavement. I guess I have been, haven't I? I'm also not talking about things like midlife crisis or a crisis of identity. Who am I? Where am I going? Nor am I talking about career decisions. Life coaching is really good for that. Some therapists are excellent at helping people in those kinds of situations. But what I'm talking about here and now is depression. If you've ever been depressed, I mean really depressed, clinically depressed, not just feeling down or blue. If you've never experienced that, you have no idea what it is that we're talking about. But if you have, you already know that it affects every part of you. You know that uh, you can't sleep, or you sleep way too much, or you have no appetite, or you stuff yourself with the most unhealthy food imaginable. You don't have any energy. You stare at the television. You're unmotivated. Nothing interests you. There's a heaviness that you can feel physically. It's a weight that you carry around with you. Um, you get irritated at the slightest little things. Um, you're miserable company, and people avoid you. They tiptoe around you. Maybe you cry easily, um, or constantly, and the running tape in your head keeps telling you that you are worthless, that you're no good, that your situation is hopeless, um, and so forth. And if you've really been depressed, you know that you can't just snap out of it. And you've probably had well meaning people who've said, well, come on, just buck up, be happy. Come on, what you need is to, you know, get out and go to a nightclub or something. Um, and if you're like me, you know, when people say things like that, you just feel like you don't understand at all. Or maybe you feel like slapping them, but you don't have the energy to do that, thankfully. Um, you know you should exercise. You know you should eat right. You know you should get out more. But instead, you know, you sit around eating potato chips all day. Um, Depression causes us to do the exact opposite of what's going to help us. During one of my uh, deepest depressive seasons, I moved into a one room apartment that had no windows. And I worked nights. I took a job working nights in a psychiatric hospital. I mean, can you imagine doing anything worse for your depression than those things? Um, I was doing things that were making me more depressed. I was doing the exact opposite. You lack motivation, you lack energy, as I said, you just really feel stuck. Now, for me, um, getting unstuck has involved several things. The first thing for me that it involves is medication. And that's a little bit harder than it sounds. Um, it's sometimes difficult to find the right medication at the right dosage. What you need is to connect with a good psychiatrist. A psychiatrist is a medical doctor, an MD. And a psychiatrist is a medical doctor who specializes in psychotherapeutic medications. It's true that any physician can prescribe medication. So your family doctor can prescribe an antidepressant. But going to a psychiatrist is, I think, really important and helpful because that psychiatrist knows those medications, knows their side effects, knows the various drug interactions far better than any other kind of physician. So I'm not putting down other kinds of physicians. I'm just saying that a specialist is really helpful in this area, as in most areas. You know, if you have an eye disease, you want to go to an ophthalmologist. If you have a heart disease, you want to go to a cardiologist. And if you're depressed, you want to visit a psychiatrist. Now, when you say psychiatrist, a lot of people think of, you know, caricatures of Sigmund Freud and lying on a couch and free associating for the next 15 years. That's not what I'm talking about, and that's not the way uh, much of modern psychiatry works. What I'm talking about is going to a psychiatrist. It's usually a a one-time visit with a few follow-ups to make sure that the medication is working, that it's the right medication for you, and that it's the right dosage. And sometimes that takes a lot of trial and error. So the physician may not be able to get it on the first try, but instead may have to try this medication. Well, you're having bad side effects, or it's not having the effect we wanted. So we're going to try a different one. We're going to wean you off of that one, try this one. That's very common. It seems like there's a subgroup of people, and I was a part of this subgroup for a long time, that's very opposed to medication. In my experience, charismatic Christians, Pentecostal Christians, evangelical Christians, and fundamental Christians, and I'm sure there's others too. But I'm really familiar with those categories because I've been a part of them in the past. A lot of people in those categories are really reluctant to take medication for depression or outright opposed to it. They somehow think that, if you have enough faith, you're not going to need medication of any kind, and or that you should just trust God, or everything you need is in the Bible, that kind of thing. All of those kinds of excuse me while I reach up here for a second. All of those kinds of things I'm familiar with, and they're not helpful. A diabetic needs medication. If you have high blood pressure, you need medication, maybe. There's a lot of situations where, medication is a gift. God is in the business of health and healing and wholeness, and God was with the people that, synthesized that particular medicine and made it available. So I encourage you not to be afraid of medication. I encourage you to start with, and I know it takes a push. When you're really depressed, you don't have the energy to do much of anything. But if you can push yourself to make that one psychiatric appointment, you're going to greatly benefit from that. Now, psychiatric medication, antidepressants we're talking about here, are not happy pills. It's not going to change your mood. You're probably not going to really, quote unquote, feel anything, other than you'll discover that you now have the energy to do the things that are going to help you. You have the energy to get out and take a walk. You have the energy to fix a meal that is healthy, that kind of thing. And speaking of doing the things that are going to help, that brings me to my next point. And my next point is therapy. And again, I'm sharing the things that have helped me. I've been in several seasons of therapy over the years, half dozen or more seasons of therapy, each season lasting for a varying length of time, 6 to 12 months or whatever. And it's been extremely helpful. And I found that the same subgroup of people that are sometimes opposed to medication are also opposed to therapy. It's kind of like it's spooky for them, or there's kind of this underlying thing that all you need is Jesus and the Bible, which is really, when you stop and think about it, it's kind of nonsense. I mean, God gave us mathematics, and God gave us vaccines, and God gave us artists, and God gave us literature. God gave us all these wonderful gifts, And among those gifts are medications that help. Things like, what a gift penicillin has been to the world, for example. Um, and helpful people like teachers and uh, therapists and counselors and um, uh, you know um, chaplains and so forth. So um, again, I encourage you just not only to not be afraid of medication, but don't be afraid of therapy. Who should you go to? Well, for depression, um, the kind of therapy that has proven really helpful is cognitive behavioral therapy, often shortened to CBT. Um, a therapist trained in cognitive behavioral therapy at the doctoral level will have a PhD. At the master's level, will have one of various kinds of master's degrees. And those people will be licensed by whatever state they're in. And if they're experienced in dealing with depressed people um, and experienced in using cognitive behavioral therapy to help us, people like us, uh, make the changes, the internal changes, and sometimes external changes that will help us break free of depression. The cognitive part of cognitive behavioral therapy aims at our thought patterns, those inner tapes, those the way we all have self-talk. We all have ways of thinking and ways of looking at things. And cognitive therapy helps us adjust those so that they are healthy and lead to wholeness. The behavioral part of it helps us to change our external behavior into more healthful patterns. Because when we're depressed, we're doing things that are making us more depressed. Staying in bed all day, eating potato chips, that kind of thing. Um, and so behavioral therapy helps us to adjust behavior. So the combination of medication, uh, prescribed and watched over by a good psychiatrist, and therapy, administered cognitive behavioral therapy, administered by a um, seasoned therapist. Um, those two things combined uh, will get you unstuck. They'll lift you out of that depressive state. I mentioned that with medication, sometimes it's a lot of trial and error. That can be the case with therapy too. You might have to try different therapists before you find the one that is a good fit for you. Somebody that you can stick with over the course of the therapy. And how long's the course of therapy? Well, that really varies widely from person to person. But typically, I think for depression, most people are in therapy for somewhere between 6 and 18 months, something like that. And then we'll circle back and, uh, kind of for tune-ups and checking in with therapy at various times after that. Um, and, if 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 your goal is normal life, um, reasonably happy life, then you can stop right there. Um, but there is a deeper level that I'd like to talk to you about for just a minute as we conclude. It's the realm of the spirit. It's the realm of the heart. It's the innermost core of who we are. It's the essence of our being. It's that part uh, of us that um, that connects with the eternal, that connects with God, that connects with God's universe, that connects with all of creation, that transcends our individuality but doesn't eliminate our individuality. We don't lose our sense of being an individual, um, but we become on a deeper level aware of the oneness of all of creation. Um, it's that deep, deep level where we enter into that mystical holiness, where we dwell in the secret place of the Most High, where we live in the heart of God, where we're nestled in a cloud of unknowing, where we're filled with an inner peace, a wholeness, a shalom, which means not just peace, but wholeness and completeness. That's my desire. That's an insatiable desire in my heart. And if it's your desire, then in addition to the psychiatrist for the medication and the therapist, excuse me, for the cognitive behavioral stuff, you need a spiritual guide, a spiritual companion, a spiritual director. You need and what is that? That is a wise mother or grandmother or father / grandfather person of faith, of deep, mature faith, someone who has walked with God for a long time, someone who is trained to listen not only to you, but also to the voice of the Holy Spirit, and who loves you deeply and can point out where God is working in your life and share the things that she or he feels or senses that the Spirit might be saying to you. That kind of a person, on an ongoing basis, will lead you to a deeper, fuller, richer place to really get in touch with your very earliest memories, even memories that are pre-memory, if that makes any sense, things that happened when you were too young to cognitively remember them. That person will help you get in touch with your true inner self, peeling away all the personas, all the all the masks that we wear and all the roles that we take as we go through life. Getting in touch with the innermost heart of who you really truly are, and then integrating that into who you are on a more surface level. So that's what's helped me. I have chronic depression. I'm sure there's a genetic component. I know that there's a family connection. I take antidepressants, and I'll probably, I suspect, be taking a maintenance dose of antidepressants for the rest of my life. And I'm okay with that. Therapy has really helped me in the past. I'm not in therapy right now, but it has helped me in the past. And when I feel the need for one of those tune-ups, I'll take advantage of it in the future. Um, Spiritual direction is changing my life, and I plan to have a spiritual director for the rest of my life. Um, so that's what's helped me, and I share it, not as I said, not as a one size fits all, not as a thus saith the Lord or any of that, but that's what's helped me, and it may, hopefully, something that I've said might be of help to you. God bless you. Take good care of yourself. God loves you just as you are.